My name is Bob Stone. I'm the chair of the Underhill Selectboard. I'm going to attempt to call this meeting to order. It is now 9 minutes after 6. Apologize for the technical snafu, but apparently we are having some first world problems here in Underhill. So we are working through those difficulty times. So anyway, there's no one here except for the select board. We're blessed with Jennifer and Amanda pitch hitting for our good friend Brad, who's home, not feeling the best, but he's here anyway. And we can see Brad and we see Rick Brigham with us virtually. MCTV is here, and so we're going to keep moving forward. Open the meeting with an agenda that has been prepared in advance. Is there any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go with what was presented. Opening the meeting with open public comment. There's no one here at the town hall, and I don't see anyone in the virtual world except for Rick and MCTV. So not hearing anyone in that regard, we'll go with the next line item, which is the fiscal year 24 financial audit review by Mr. Brigham. Thank you, Mr. Brigham, for being here tonight. We'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Can you everybody hear me okay?
Again.
Okay. So I wanted to just go over the audit report tonight, kind of go through some of the highlights of it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I want to give you at least what the process was. So if you're looking at the audit, it's 54 pages. So there's a lot of information in there. Obviously, the big focus of this, looking at the report, I have one charge, and that's basically looking at pages 1 through 3. So the responsibility of all the work that goes into preparing the financial statements, all the work during the year, transactions, paying payroll, receipts, revenue, all that kind of stuff, reconciliations, that's all part of management there, Jennifer and Brad and the team there trying to organize all those transactions. My job is to come in and perform an audit on those numbers to make sure they're fairly stated. So really, when you're looking at this financial statement, most of the information is provided by management. The one thing that isn't is pages 1 through 3, which is the auditor's opinion. So when an auditor is giving an opinion, he has 3 choices: an adverse opinion saying the financial statements are not fairly stated, a qualified opinion saying the financial statements are fairly stated except for something, and the best you can get is an unqualified opinion. Once again, the town of Underhill achieved an unqualified opinion on their financial statement audit. I always like to congratulate my clients that get to that level, as I do have a lot of clients who work towards that and getting things corrected and fixed enough to be able to get to that level. But again, an unqualified opinion, everybody should be proud of that. So just kind of going on, I'm going to kind of go through the highlights. If you're looking at pages 4 through 10, that's what we call the management's discussion and analysis. If you looked at nothing else in this audit report, this is a user-friendly information summary of what happened during the year for the financial statements. So like I said, if you're not looking to get into the weeds and a lot of the details, this is a great summary session of how the year went, some of the explanations for where you are with fund balances, what happened with some of the revenues, expenses being under or over budget to kind of lead to the net fund balances on the different fund. So if we're going to skip over to pages 13 and 14. These are what we call the fund financials. So this is basically the financials for your general fund. If you're looking at page 13, this is the balance sheet. A balance sheet is basically a snapshot in time of what your assets and your liabilities looked like as of June 30, 2024. So this becomes a lot of primary focus of our auditing work, is getting to these balance sheet numbers, as well as, if you look at the next page, the income statement numbers for all the different revenues and expenses that relate to the general fund. So the only real highlight I wanted to kind of point out to you is looking at your middle of the page, you're seeing the unassigned fund balance under the fund balance section was 936,508. Pretty good, healthy fund balance there. So I thought that should be pointed out. It looks to be in good shape there. And like I said, if you're looking at the next page, you're basically looking at the revenues and expenses that show how you get to the total fund balance from the balance sheet. So you can see that 1275 193 of total fund balances ties back to the end of Exhibit D and shows you the revenues and expenses that got you there. If you do want to deep dive into the audit, pages 18 through 42, these are what we call the notes to the financial statements. If you want to know what cash is collateralized, what's not collateralized, what debt terms we have, what are the different fund balances that can be used for, pension information. There's a lot of great information in there that will give you a lot of deep dive information on anything you're kind of looking at and trying to get more information on. Again, I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of going through that. It'll take up too much time, and kind of just want to provide a summary. So again, if you're looking for a deeper dive into that, you can look at that. Pages 43 through 49, you've probably seen these all year long. These are your budget actuals that you're probably getting regular financial reporting from the treasurer on where your budget and actuals were falling during the year. Well, this is what happened with your budget versus actuals of what happened at year end. And one of the things I kind of looked through when I was thumbing through it this afternoon was it looked like a lot of the highway expenses were just well under budget, what was budgeted, which was the main reason why you ended up having a surplus in the general fund. So one of our responsibilities as auditors to communicate to the board is any sort of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we find. In coming in to do the audit, you obviously had a turnover in auditors coming in, and sometimes that can create kind of a learning curve for the finance department on what's the expectation and trying to get all the adjustments posted. Whenever we post adjustments or have adjustments posted as part of the audit process, we have to probably come up with some sort of material weaknesses or significant deficiency. So we did assist Jennifer in kind of coming up with some of the reconciliations of receivables, payables related to the VEMRs, things like that, reconciliation of accounts payable. So what we're doing is in this page 54 is we're recommending that all those balance sheet accounts be reconciled before we go in. And so I've had several conversations with Jennifer on this and trying to figure out how to go into the 25 audit and have most of this stuff corrected even before we walk in the door. So we're going to have a meeting on that somewhere after tax season to kind of go through stuff and go through what were last year's adjustments and give her guidance on how to make sure that stuff's all adjusted this year. The only other item we noted as part of this was a significant deficiency on authorization of journal entries. You know, usually there's pretty good controls there about authorization, approval of invoices, board warrants, all that kind of stuff. What we're saying is if there's a journal entry that's done during the year, whether it's reclassing from an expense to expense, booking accruals, that kind of stuff, we just want an extra second pair of eyes on those journal entries, along with a documentation signature that somebody's reviewing and approving those journal entries. So that's something what I would do is create a journal entry binder and have somebody maybe from the board look at it once a month, looking at all the journal entries that happen and sign off on the monthly journal entries. That would be my recommendation. As part of the required communications, there are some other things I just need to communicate to you. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with staff or management during the course of the audit. We had no disagreements with staff or management during the audit. We had no consultations with other auditors, and all the entries we proposed were posted by management. So everything that we discussed with them is in the audit report, so there was no unposted entries. Overall, I was very happy with how the audit went. I'm very happy that the communication between us, Brad and Jennifer, on moving into the 25 audit, and I'm fully confident that we'll go into that and clean up any of these significant deficiencies and material weaknesses, and that you'll have no findings next year. But we'll take a look at that, like I said, over the next month, have some chats and go from there. But overall, I was very happy with the process and how it went. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Rick. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Can you hear us, Brad? You can. Okay. So I do not have any questions. Thank you, Rick, for being here tonight. Anyone on the board have any questions for Rick?
My only question is the policy requirement for going over the journal entries.
Rick, can you hear Patty okay?
Yeah, I didn't get the gist of what the question was.
Brad, this is where your cell phone would have to be next to the speaker so that we can hear Rick.
We changed that policy internally already.
Actually, Rick was just asking if you could just repeat the
I can't
question.
hear you, Brad.
So we'll have to develop a policy for that.
Can't you hear me?
But this is the journal entries. There's
Yep,
two
sorry.
ones. One is that she does that. You have that second step, but then there's the
Okay,
next
so
one.
Does the board need to be involved in that?
That's what he said.
so this won't work well if we are talking and Brad is trying to talk. So we either have to wait for Brad to give us a response, or we need to tell Brad to hold. But this won't work because we're at a deficiency trying to do this virtually. So however the board wants to proceed, let me know. But we gotta figure this out quick.
Can you just take up anything that's crucial at today's meeting and table everything else?
We can do that.
That way we can get through whatever is required for action.
Brad, so
This is gonna be hard.
this is gonna be, hold on. So Brad, running this meeting this way is gonna be extremely difficult to try to do this in a virtual environment. We can end the virtual component once we get done with Rick. I can record the rest of the meeting on my phone. And then we can go through the rest of this meeting that way. Or if you want to tell us, or we'll wait for a response from you, or if there are things that you want to have on camera, and we can table the rest of the items on the agenda until we can meet at our next scheduled meeting. So I guess we're looking for a recommendation from you of, one, do you want us to record it here once we ask the questions of Rick? And then two, if not recording it, tell us what on the agenda is critical that we get through tonight. And we'll deal with that, and then we're going to end this because we're at a deficit with the internet being down. So please let us know.
You can hear me now. Okay, so I would recommend any questions for Rick, we should forward him via email. And then I would like to see, the only thing is when I'm talking about, you have to be muted. There we go.
Okay, so you can hear me now, right, Ed? Okay, so message received on our end. Patty, if you can, when Patty's talking, Brad, if you could give the thumbs up and say you can hear Patty. If not, Patty can come up and talk in front of the computer here, and I'll get up, because of the limited capacity that we have here, and she can ask her. Why don't we do that, Patty? Why don't we, if people have questions, they can come up and sit here and then ask the questions and then kind of go from there. And then when we're done talking, we'll mute the mic on our end and wait for a response. So stand by.
Hi, Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me, Rick?
Yes, I can.
My question relates to the second finding that you have in your report. So I'm on page
Yep,
55.
54. Yep.
And your recommendation is we recommend that the town enact a policy that requires appropriate.
Will now be recorded.
Is that internet is back?
Can we talk now? Okay. All right. Test.
Jennifer needs to mute her speaker on the computer.
Yeah, we're good. Test. Okay, so your recommendation reads, we recommend that the town enact a policy that requires appropriate officials. And my question is, who are the appropriate officials? Is it the select board?
Well, what I would say is what I usually,
Authorize and review all general journal entries so as not to circumvent the original approval process.
So when you're done talking, then you got a new Patty on the screen. Use the mic thing and just, yep, or you can just touch it.
can you hear me now? Okay, so what I would suggest is what I always tell my clients is whoever has any sort of the best financial experience, sometimes that's a board member, sometimes that would be the town administrator, sometimes it could be somebody else. What you're looking for is somebody who could at least understand, read through the journal entries, make sure they make sense, see that there's appropriate backup attached. And so it's not like you have to have an in-depth accounting knowledge, but you have to have some idea of what the numbers are doing and what the purpose of the entries are for. Does that make sense?
Okay, Brad. So that's all the questions we have on our end. Rick, thank you again for getting through this with us with our arms tied behind our backs here with technology. But, you know,
No problem.
and if we think of anything else, we will certainly
Forward
get
it.
in touch.
Yep.
But thank you so
That
much
sounds
for
great.
being here tonight.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick second to see if we can get the owl because it seems like the internet is somewhat stable. So bear with us here now that we're done with Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. So it's.
All right, so Mike, thanks.
I'm
So-
just for the record, Bob, just so Donna can keep her sanity. It's we exited. We started had technical difficulty at 6:26, and we're back on now at 6:37.
Okay, thank you, Brad. So the next item on the agenda is to review and consider the 2025 town land contracts, renewals, and transfers. I no longer have my phone, so I can't review this. So I'm assuming Amanda's here to go over those with us.
One quick suggestion before we get going too farther is if I printed off some notes on the copier over there, there should be a printout somewhere. Just go look at the copier.
Can you tell us what you're referencing? Is it the one that
Should be
has the
Yeah, it should have motions and.
Yep, we're there.
Okay.
So before we get into the land contracts, I'm going to move to accept the fiscal year 2024 financial audit report prepared by Sullivan, Powers and Company. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now, Jennifer.
I just want to say one thing in reference to the audit, so it goes on the record.
Yep.
The one finding that Rick Brigham brought up about having a second signature on all journal entries that are made. As soon as I received that letter that said that was, that was their recommendation, we changed that policy. And now if you look in the binder upstairs in my office where I make journal entries, they all have a second signature by Sherry, who has an equally strong understanding of the town's financial and why I'm making the journal entries that I'm making. So, thank you. Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna switch gears to the land contract issue. Amanda's here, so she's gonna go over this with us.
Sure.
And then we have some motions that we can make as it relates to that. So take it away.
All right, so it is town contract time. I know we have two new select boards. I don't members, I don't think you've gone through this before, so we do have a town contract in town for some people who qualify, who have more than 10 acres can sometimes get a little bit of a break on their taxes if they agree to not subdivide, keep their land as is for a good 10 years. The contracts are up every 10 years. This year we had two that renewed, two that were not eligible because they cannot subdivide, so we had to kind of kick them out. And one did not respond to me. There's two renewals, and then there was a purchase of a property that was already in the land contract, and they're taking over that for the remainder of that contract, which will expire in 2027. So the town contract, whatever money they're saving goes into a pool, and we spread that out between the rest of the residents. So we are paying, the rest of us are all paying for the discount that these guys are getting.
Very good.
Okay.
So we can discuss this. I'm going to move to approve the land contract renewals for 354 Pleasant Valley Road and 31 South Hill. And I also move to, would like to add that the transfer of the land contract for 84 Beartown Road. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have three separate properties on the table: Pleasant Valley, South Hill, and Beartown Road. Any discussion as it relates to any of those three properties and their land contracts or renewals or transfers? Seeing and hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the land contract renewal for 354 Pleasant Valley Road, 31 South Hill, and the transfer of the land contract as it relates to 84 Beartown Road, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Want to sign these now or later?
We can sign them at the end. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. So the next thing we have here, it's just keeping track of the time here for time's sake. It's 6:42, and the next item was a request from the Community Arts Council, and there was a memo or a handwritten letter with a nice piece of art on it for your consideration.
Yep, we got it. So the Arts Council is looking to install some mounting fixtures in the town hall stairway and the hallway leading to the upstairs. I don't know if it necessarily has a price tag associated.
But they say they paid for it.
But they're paying for it.
In the snow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just a matter of, do we want to install hardware to accommodate that? So I'm going to move that we allow the Community Arts Council to install the art mounting fixtures in the town hall stairway and into the hallway leading to the upstairs. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion as it relates to that?
I think this is kind of a lovely idea. The art shows have been, I think, a really nice way to bring people into town hall, and I think it will continue to do that. And I just appreciate the initiative of the Community Art Council to make sure there is art displayed that's local, and I think this will be really nice. So I appreciate them doing that.
Agreed.
Listen, and it will be good to have these people who are experienced and knowledgeable monitoring that on a regular basis.
Yes, indeed.
To vet them in an appropriate way.
Mm-hmm.
I support it too. We just encourage them to work with somebody inside the building to fix them, so they're not just going in on their own. So they, whoever staff-wise can work with them to make sure that they're being set up properly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of supporting the Community Arts Council installing the art mounting fixtures in the town hall stairway and the hallway leading to the upstairs, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So the next item We're gaining traction, Brad. The fiscal year 2026 Chittenden County Sheriff's contract is up to review and execute.
I drove past the sheriff on my way to the meeting this evening.
Nothing should have happened.
I was driving the speed limit, so no concern.
Good to hear. As always, Patty is blushing, so I'm not sure if she had the same experience or not. But.
So I just add that that's the amount.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it was what we approved. The voters approved in the budget.
Right. So I'm going to move that we execute the fiscal year 2026 Chittenden County Sheriff's contract at 10 hours per week at a rate of $80 an hour for a total of $41,600. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? By agreeing to this, you're approving that I will sign the contract.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor of going ahead with the Chittenden County Sheriff's for $41,600, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we'll take care of that too. All right. Town administrator items and updates. Brad, this is your favorite part of the meeting.
There it is.
Okay, take it away.
All right. So, the special town meeting is well underway. So the first ad appeared in the 7 days yesterday, and that was a week early. So it wasn't necessary, but we decided to just do 4 consecutive weeks instead of the 3. No harm, no foul. So it's just more notice, the better. The warnings were posted early April in the time frame that they could be at least 5 to 6 spots. And we did use the school as was suggested. So,
Okay.
And then I've got some information up on the website. We're still looking for some information about if you wanted to supply any information about the truck. I kind of did just a short summary of why we're revisiting the bond question. And Sherry was nice enough to, she had to actually today to put a post on Front Porch Forum because she has to make sure that people know that early ballots are available. So that's underway. Next step this week or when I get back in will be to just craft a simple postcard warning to go out. It really won't be a lot of information on it. It'll just state that we're having the special town meeting and the details and the informational meeting details, and then where they can find more information. So that's where we are on that. I don't know if there's any questions.
I met with Russ last Friday and have mapped out information that I want to try to put into a PowerPoint on some of the rationale, not necessarily speaking in favor, but just bringing up the facts so that those are out there for the residents to consider when they're looking at that question, so that they have some facts and figures as far as the question before them. So I hope to have that concluded here very shortly, maybe this weekend.
That'd be
and have it to Brad by Monday, so that we can review and make sure that we're staying neutral on the issue, so it's not weighing one way or the other.
Yeah, and then I know Amanda mentioned she was gonna now that Sherry has put it up on the website, and basically it's just a link. There's several ways to get information, but the main link is what Amanda put right on the website homepage. So that's where we should have any information available, where people will go. So sounds good. I'm gonna just keep jumping down the line here. Yeah. So Green Up Day, we talked about the tires thing last week or 2 weeks ago, but I did a little research on it, and I just wanted to revisit that again because I think it's a little bit more money than I was comfortable just, I know we were kind of all in agreement with saying, oh, let's do a tire roundup. But so back in 2020 in July, and this was during COVID, we filled 3 dumpsters and it cost us $3,400. And we have $5,000 in the community cleanup fund. And in order to get that, money or to ask for it, we have to ask our representatives, which would be Paul Roos and Dan Steinbauer, who sit on the CSWD board, and then they would recommend that we do it or not. I think we might want to rethink that, the tire thing. It's quite a chunk of money, but I guess unfortunately I don't have any different ideas on other than just simply doing the Green Up Day with the barbecue like we always do.
So, thank you. I guess the question becomes that we've agreed to do this. However, we have to ask, what I'm hearing you say is that we have to ask Paul or Dan to ask on our behalf as our town's liaison to the Chittenden County Solid Waste for access to that $5,000. Dan's here tonight. So, are you concerned about the price of the tires has gone up to dispose of them, Brad?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I called Gothiers last week and she never got back to me, but she said definitely prices have gone up. So I could shop around, but Gothiers has we used the really huge dumpsters last time. They were like 30 footers and they were super tall, like probably 12 feet tall. They held a lot of tires. But she, I was thinking with the, just the cost of inflation and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if we did fill up 3 dumpsters again. You're going to be looking at about $4,000. But, maybe we do get $1,500 every year. Maybe we want to go for it. I don't know. I just thought I would put the brakes on a little bit and let you know what it cost last time.
So Dan, go ahead.
Putting another perspective on it, in some sense, disposing of tires is a responsibility that people take on when they get new tires. And they have that option to do that. And I'm wondering if we are training people, because I know CSWD found themselves in that position, because CSWD used to have, if you remember, that on a certain day of the year, people could bring 4 tires, and at the Williston site, because they could handle it better, 8 tires. And they discontinued that because, I think that the motivation is so that we can encourage people not to throw them in the ditches and off the cliffs. However, they charge for appliances too, and that is, some people are going to follow that way of disposing no matter what. Hopefully with the education and with the awareness that is decreasing. So I'm inclined to recommend that we don't do the tire thing. The labor for doing that is pretty intense, getting extra people, and I know we could get volunteer labor like the Boy Scouts, but you got to have somebody there to supervise these. It's not an easy task, and I'm not sure what creative things that we could do otherwise with the money, but there may be some things that we need to clean up that we might be able to throw that money toward. But I think tire disposal is the responsibility of the individual. And when Vermont Tire says, what do you want me to do with these tires? And I say, I don't want to see them again. And I'll pay you $2-3 to do that. I think that having people save tires, because if they know that they can count on the town doing it, they tend to save them, and sometimes they don't store them properly. Maybe they don't have indoor storage, and they become mosquito breeders because they collect water. And so I just adding some of those arguments to the pot.
The only quick thing I'll add is any roadside tires that are picked up, Casella, and between Casella and I think mainly Casella, we'll be able to dispose of those.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
When people find those and when they bring those, that would certainly be, acceptable as a. I don't know that we need to provide that service.
So, any other discussion?
I was very in support of that service because of the special town meeting and the opportunity that may draw a lot of people to the town garage, where it would be a really great opportunity for us to talk about the special town meeting and promote why we need the approval for the trucks. I hear what you're saying.
I don't know that we can campaign for that. We can't campaign for the truck.
Not campaign, but we can provide if there can be information of of the fleet, an opportunity to see the fleet and have discussions.
It's still going to be a drop. The garage, regardless, will still be a drop-off point for the Green Up Day, and that's what food would be.
Yeah, and we will pull more people out of the community if there was also a tire drop-off.
I agree.
And I would be, if the cost is what's going to drive this, then I would be okay with saying a 4-tire minimum per household instead of an 8-tire minimum. Maximum, sorry. I think there are plenty of people being one of them. Most people in Underhill need to have an all-wheel drive car. You ruin 1 tire and you just can't. You got 3 tires. I think 4-tire minimum, a maximum would be also acceptable.
I'm wondering if we know there is a limit and we recognize that the price has potentially gone up, that if we know that we can get 2 dumpsters, that just like a baker, if you sell out, you put the sign up that says, sorry, we sold out today.
Right.
Thank you for your patronage, or, type of thing. So just like, I'm wondering, like, if we know that we can only support because we have so much funds, if we want to say, once the dumpster's full, like, we can't take any more, type of thing, and call it good. It's just like, we have limitations, but it's up to you if we're going to reverse course or if we're going to stay the course. So I guess if you want to reverse, we've already approved to go forward. So we're going to go forward unless someone wants to make a motion that we want to pause this or do something else.
Yeah, I would like us to continue to do it this year. I mean, you make some really good points, but maybe this is the last year we offer it. And we just say it's not like we're training people every year, because we're not doing this on a year-to-year basis. Just periodically, it's hit or miss. It's like 1 in 10 years.
Was the last time we did it was 2020? Is that right?
Yeah, 5 years ago, basically.
So it's recent.
2 dumpsters every 5 years is not like
enabling.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think of it.
I mean, I'm not.
There is stuff that's in bad shape or is becoming a breeding ground for mosquitoes, or as it may be. This just might be enough to shift some things.
I could also reach out to like Dana Sweet. Maybe he can. Maybe he could supply some. I don't know. Gothiers, like I said, they didn't call me back, but let me do a little shopping around if you want to still go for it.
I think that's the consensus of the group. I'm not hearing otherwise. And Brad, I trust that you can, work this out with either Casella or Sweets or Nate Way or whoever you need to talk to. And then be mindful that I think that it's the consensus that we would like to stay within the budget that we do have access to through our community fund, and you can work that out with Paul and Dave to find out if they can make the arrangements to see if we can get the funds going in the direction of the town of Underhill for our Green Up Day activity.
Yes.
Constraints, the limits, both in terms of the dumpster and how many, for the baker analogy,
Yeah, that's good.
and also limiting to 4 tires in a household. That would be a way to control the costs a little bit, since we're out of control of both costs, and I would have no trouble given a more consensus. I would have no trouble approving that as a CSWD route.
Okay. It's a good plan.
All right. Well, I think we got our marching orders.
Okay.
Anybody wants? Next one is the 12 Dumas Road FEMA buyout.
Yep. So hang on a minute. I've just got 2 computers going here. So last Monday, not 4 days ago, but a week ago, last Monday, I went out of Burlington. We closed on the property, so it's in our possession. And I was provided a checklist that I put in your packet. And there's some budget numbers for the various things. So I just wanted to let you know what was going on. I've reached out to Tina Heath, Wetlands Department. She's the Wetlands Coordinator. She needs to just go down and look at the site, review it, and make sure we're not impacting any wetlands or buffers. Even if we were, which I don't think we aren't, that's an allowed use in those areas. And then I've reached out to 3 asbestos contractors, and I've gotten similar. I've learned a lot about asbestos, but I've learned the ins and outs of, like, some people, some firms include testing, some don't. So I think I've probably got a pretty good handle on that, but I'd just like to be able to, I guess I'm asking you if I can just keep moving forward, working within that FEMA budget to keep this moving, because it's got to be completed by June 30th. So
I think the consensus is that what we've agreed upon in the past, and I'm reading the room now, that the consensus is that keep going with the prepared budget numbers.
Okay. So, and again, those are budget numbers that can be amended if we get into more of say we come across a lot of asbestos that needs to be abated. We go back at FEMA again and adjust the number, but those are the numbers we have to work with. So that's that. Moore Park Pavilion. I included in your packet a little memo I wrote. I met with John Moore and I met with Tom as well a couple days later. And they're both very anxious to order this kit. Can you hear me? It's all right.
Yep.
Okay. Do I sound funny or something? You guys are laughing.
No.
Okay. So they're ordering this. They want to order this kit, but there's a few things we need to do. So we settled on. I put a little site map in your packet of where it's going to be located. So when we did the topography work for the sidewalk project, the rink was up, so I had them locate the rink. So that's exactly the rink's position as you see it. And then I drew on the pavilion, which they've shrunk in size a little bit to, I think, what is it, 16 by 20, I think, or 14 by 20?
14 by 20.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. So basically, as the memo says, I'd just like to get your approval. This has to go through the Development Review Board because it's a public structure. So since the public's going to be using any public facility, has to go through the Development Review Board. And I'd like to, the schedule would be to get that done like May 5th on the Development Review Board. If the approval happened that night and we had the approval written and no one showed up or was opposed to it, 30-day appeal period would go by and we could theoretically start in the 1st of June, which you'd want to wait till that anyway to make sure the ground dries up and we're not doing more damage than we should. The only thing the Moores are asking would be for the town to supply gravel to bring the structure up to grade a little bit. It kind of sits in a hole. So they're just asking if the town, and whether it's Russ and the road crew or we just subcontract out somebody and buy the gravel just to get the surface prepared. They'll pour the slab. They'll erect they'll pay for and erect for the pavilion, and then they would just ask us to run a couple short lengths of conduit over to the power pole so they could have outlets at the pavilion for bands and stuff like that.
Do we have a sense, Brad, of how much gravel would be needed and what the cost of that would be to the town?
Peanuts, really. I mean, a couple loads of gravel. I mean, nothing more than they spend in 5 minutes. I'm out on the road. No, I don't think we're talking about a significant raise in grade. It's just maybe 2-3 loads. Yeah. And I think given the expense of the pavilion and how nice it's going to be.
So Brad, with the approval, and we're going to make a motion here shortly, but we're going to make sure that this public building is ADA compliant and accessible, correct?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think that's the reason for the grade to come up. I'll coordinate. I'll make sure. Yeah, I'm sure as you see the picture of the pavilion in your packet.
Right.
There's no stairs being proposed. So it's we'll make sure. Yep.
I understand, but I also understand that if it's a public building, it has to be accessible. So from the parking lot to the pavilion would need to have some type of hard impact surface for someone in a wheelchair to be able to get to and then go into the pavilion. So I'd like to have that under consideration with your site and everything like that. So I'm not saying it has to be a sidewalk, but there needs to be a hard impact surface for someone that is, handicapped to be able to get to that location.
Sure.
With that, I move that we authorize the town administrator to prepare and sign necessary applications for the DRB for the pavilion as presented with the ADA recommendations as just discussed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Can I have discussion item? When I look at this photograph and I think about a building's longevity, say compared to the post and beam structure at Mills Riverside Park, I think the town needs to acknowledge that we are taking on upkeep and maintenance costs.
Yeah, I can safely tell you that.
That will last.
So this
picture alone, I'm not seeing something to me that looks like high quality, long lasting construction.
Yeah, so I'll speak for the Moore family. Tom Moore, builder. They're extremely particular people, and they build nothing but super high quality. I think the post and beam structure was thought about, but then the character of the area or the character of the buildings, this seemed to be better suited. And I would just safely say that so long as the Moore families in Underhill, we're in good hands. So I personally have full confidence in John and Tom to make sure that I think it is built out of some composite type material. It's not plastic. It's not cheesy. It's built out of some AZAC type composite. But I could get you some more details on that.
Well, it does, and I hadn't associated Tom Moore with the Moore family, and yes, I'm aware of the quality of his work.
Yeah. So they want to do something very, very nice for a legacy for their folks. So I have 100% confidence in anything they would pick out, but that's just me.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
No, just that we appreciate the Moore family's continued commitment and their willingness to, do the work and donate this amount of time and beauty to the town is really much appreciated. So thank you to the Moore family.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of authorizing Brad to prepare and sign the necessary application for the DRB for the pavilion as presented tonight with the ADA request, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, Brad, keep going. You're doing so well.
Yep. All right. I don't know if did Mike Weisel come in? He's there.
Here,
Okay,
he's here,
good.
in living color.
Yeah,
So-
introducing Mike Weisel, we were talking about CSWD before. Underhill is a unique town on the commission because since we joined in 1992, we have had 3 commissioners. Mike, myself, and Paul Roos, who came on after Mike left. There is no other town that has had that kind of longevity. And Mike was on for quite a while. Mike was the commissioner, I was the alternate, and then he switched to be the alternate, and I was the commissioner. And then Paul came on as the alternate, and he became the commissioner, and I'm the alternate. And now he's the board chair. So Underhill has a footprint in CSWD, and we were latecomers because we were resistant. There's a lot of history behind that, but we don't need to take time to do that. Because we were involved with our own commission. Yeah, there's the Authorize committee with George Bradford. Here in Underhill in the 1980s.
So
Look at all the knowledge.
We know trash.
no trash.
We can talk about trash.
Yeah, with the best of them. That's right. We know trash. So.
But I'll just say a couple things, and I'll let Mike, since he's right there. But Mike and I went and met with VTRANS a couple weeks ago, just to let them know where our situation, where we were with the Bridge 7 grant. We had a really productive meeting. We learned a few things, and we learned that it certainly doesn't hurt to apply for the paving grant. Very, very slim chance we'll receive anything. There's only a certain pot of money. And VTRANS District 5 is a pretty big district. It doesn't just, even though it stops at the North Underhill Station Road, it goes all the way down into like Shoreham, other towns. So it's a big district, and they divvy up the money every year, and there's ranking, and Jim Coda, who was down there, explained to us how he calculates the ranking. But anyway, we feel pretty good that we've got a good shot at the structures grant. So there's that application, and we decided that, well, let's just apply for the Class 2 paving grant as well. So with the Class 2 paving grant, the only roads that qualify in Underhill, just for the record, are Park Street, River Road, Pleasant Valley. So that's Town Highway 1. So that's the only Class 2 highway. We have basically 8.52 miles or something of Class 2 highway. So that's the only highway that's eligible for these grants. But I don't know. Go ahead, Mike, and if you wanted to just.
Yeah, sure. I'll just add to what you said, Brad, by saying that when we met with those guys, they said they think it's pretty likely that we would get the structures grant. We've been in line for a structures grant for that bridge a couple of years, and we've not gotten it. I think we've risen pretty near the top.
And they recognized that bridge is in rough shape. So I'm not promising, but from what they said, it sounds very likely that we would get that. Now, on the highway paving one, you might ask, well, why are we going to bother? Because he said they typically give out 7 grants, and we're 17th on the list. So it's very unlikely that we would get that. But he said if you keep applying, it gives the legislature a sense of how much need there is. And it's a little bit more impetus to them to increase the pot every year. Because right now it's, I think, at 200,000 is the maximum grant. So if they put a little more money in the pot, they could give out more than 7 grants per year. So if we don't keep applying and getting denied, they are not going to know this. So we thought for the trouble it's going to take to do that grant, we ought to do it and submit. So those grants need to include 2 forms, which I think Brad got to you in your packet. The TA60 form and a certificate of compliance with road standards form. We're going to do 2 grants. So we would need your signatures on 2 copies of each of those 2 forms. So
Yeah.
we were hoping that you would agree to.
So I have,
those forms and then allow Brad to move forward with submitting those grants.
so as it relates to the VTRANS grant, going to move to approve the submittal and the necessary documents for the fiscal year 2026, excuse me so much, structures grant application for bridge number 7 and the class 2 paving grant application for the Pleasant Valley Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion as it relates to the VTRANS grant? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with an nay. Motion carries 5-0. As it relates to the paving and crack sealing bid documents in the packet.
Bob, I just wanted to bring up one quick thing as something that we learned while we're there that I think is important for you all to know. I'm just gonna bear with me for 2 seconds here. So you'll notice on the grant application itself on the first page, right, where it says Vermont Agency of Transportation, and see how there's 3 categories there. There's structures, and there's class 2 roadway, and there's another thing for emergency. So what we learned is, and this is very timely given the uncertainty of FEMA. If, say, our town just had an isolated incident where we sustained a heavy amount of rain, and it was a really isolated area, and it affected maybe only Underhill, there's a pot of money that we can apply for under the emergency grant application. And this directly relates to the TA60 form. So when you see the TA60 form, you'll notice that the expenses are broken down for winter and non-winter. And if you've ever looked at like Cambridge's, the way they keep track of their budget, and I'm not advocating for this, but it now makes sense that they keep track of their summer roads and winter roads separately. So I think we can, Mike and I worked with some numbers that Russ gave us, and we took our best stab at it. But I think this TA60 form is is more accurate than probably any form we've come up with before. And did you have the number written down, Mike, of what when they look at the emergency grant, what the percentage is?
10%.
10%.
The damage that you hope to repair with the help of their grant needs to be at least 10% of your non-winter line on that form.
Right.
So the more you can make your winter line increase, it makes that 10% of the summer part less. So then a smaller amount of damage will still qualify for their grant. So, for instance, Jim Coda said, what about all the gravel you put in the roads in the spring? That's because of winter.
Yeah.
That's not a summer expense. That's because of winter. What about all the hauling of your sand that you do in the summer? That's because of winter. So put those sorts of costs into the winter category and get them out of the summer category to make the summer category shrink so 10% is less.
Okay.
So we did. That's
Very helpful insight.
yeah. I thought
Yeah.
that was really good. We had a really good meeting with those guys.
That's great. I'm so glad you guys are able to go. That's super helpful to do it face to face, and I feel like you get a lot more information. It was great.
They can also just, I'll just finish with this though. It's most often, I think he said it sugars out to 60-40. So if you had a really low number on that summer rate, they would probably, although maybe there's some towns that, you know, most of their budget is winter. I don't know, but it makes sense, logical sense, that if you don't have the money for your summer roads and you need it for an emergency, that's how the calculation's formed. But anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
So I'm gonna move that we authorize Brad and Mike of the Highway Infrastructure Committee to release and advertise the bid documents to the public as it relates to paving.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of authorizing Brad and Mike Wiesel of the Highway Infrastructure Committee to release and advertise the bid documents to the public as it relates to paving and crack sealing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The last item, as it relates to pavement repair bid documents, I'm going to move that we authorize Brad, the town administrator, Mike Wiesel of the Highway Infrastructure Committee to release and advertise the pavement repair bid documents to the public, contingent on the finalization of a list of areas in need of repair. Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded by Patty. Sorry, Dan. I think she's just a little bit nicer than you. So that's I was, drawn to her. I went right by you, and I went right to Patty. So I wasn't gonna go there. I just said I thought she's dressed nicer. Well, he'll have another opportunity. We'll let him second one of the other things. Any other discussion as it relates to the pavement and repair and bid documents and Patty's attire?
Yeah.
There's a belief to this, not very tired, but you look very nice.
So
This is new. This is a new concept, this pavement repair. And well, you've driven on Pleasant Valley Road, River Road. You've seen there's great stretches, 100 feet, 150 feet long, a couple 3 feet wide, where it's just all repairing, and it's way beyond pothole repair. It's a cold patch. So the thought was to go in with a milling machine and mill out 2 inches in a rectangular area, put some emulsion in there to make it stick, and then put type 3 bituminous concrete, just like the paving we put on our overlays, back in now. And this money, the way Brad and I have been thinking of it, would have to come out of the fund that was approved for crack sealing. So if we do this, it's going to mean that we'll have to sit down and figure out how much do we steal from crack sealing to put into this kind of work. But we really don't have a feel for it because we don't know what it's going to cost until we get that bid back. And just because we have the crack sealing bid and the pavement repair bid doesn't mean we have to go forward with both of them. We could completely skip the pavement repair, or we could completely skip the crack sealing for a year and put it all into pavement repair. We can balance that. But at least if we get the bid out there and get some numbers, then we'll have something to work.
Have we done it this way before? Pardon me? Have we done it this way before? It's been a repair?
No. Well, the only thing that's just even similar to this is we did pave a section on Pleasant Valley Road down toward the Cambridge end. I can't tell you which segment. It might be number 5 or something. And there was some areas on the left-hand side, that'd be the lane headed back toward Underhill, that were really bad. And we got the paver to go in there and mill out a couple inches first with the width of the lane, repair that, and then they put the overlay over it, instead of putting the overlay on top of all this broken up pavement. And it seems to be holding up pretty well. So I think it's worth doing. It's just a matter of figuring out how to allocate the money to do it.
I'd just like to add that, I'm sorry. I can't see everybody here, so I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
No, I just wanted to say that, let's keep in mind that we are throwing a lot more money on Pleasant Valley Road for paving this year because of the surplus that the auditor talked about, right? So our typical paving budget is around $200,000, and we're throwing like $340 at it this year. So we're probably not going to be able to do that next year without significant raises in taxes, especially if there's a new truck on the books, 2 new trucks on the books actually. But I think you see VTRANS doing a lot of this work, and I think I just encourage you to drive down Pleasant Valley. I mean, Patty does every day, but just look at some of these sections that are bad. But, the majority of the road isn't too bad. So if we can just isolate these sections, we may be able to, it's not to say we're going to stop our major paving projects, but it could buy us a good amount of time. And probably all this paving work should be concentrated on Pleasant Valley because that's where it seems to be needed the most.
Well, Brad, Shar and I talked about this, and it's, whatever we can do to make Patty happy.
Okay. You gotta have the dogs have to have a smooth ride.
So I think, whatever it is. Yeah.
I just had a question about the bids and how long, if there is concern around how long the bids are going to be good for, given all the things in terms of costs of supplies and materials, if there is a concern around kind of budget planning based on bids, if we're not sure if those costs are going to stay stable. I don't know if you have a sense for that, but
When they did put in a price, that's the price. With the exception that on these asphalt bids, the price per ton for the asphalt is tied into a VTRANS factor. I forgot what they call it. Some kind of a number that gauges the price of bituminous, and it fluctuates.
Mm-hmm.
And so our contracts, or rather our bid documents, say that we're going to tie the price of the asphalt to that factor, to that, whatever you call it, the VTRANS number.
okay,
So that takes some of the guesswork out of it for them.
got it.
But then they can still, their bid would be fixed as far as their labor costs, their trucking, their fuel, and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
So.
And this work has to be completed by October within this paving season. We talked about maybe pushing it out until the early part of next spring, but Pleasant Valley can't wait that long. So,
I don't know if this is too much information. You probably want to keep this meeting moving, but we've got 3 alternatives in the bid for paving of Pleasant Valley Road. What we'd really like to do is mill off some off the top, then come in with a big machine that's like a giant rototiller, and it turns it all up and breaks it up right down through to the gravel. And then that gets all spread out, regraded. Some more gravel gets brought in to bring the grade up a bit, then it gets paved. That's called reclaiming the road. That's short of rebuilding it, that's the best you could do. But it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So in case we don't have enough money for that, which we probably won't, unless we get that grant, which we probably won't. Then we have alternative 2, which is to reclaim from where Seth Friedman used to live to Harvey Road. And then for the remainder of it, from Harvey Road to number 253, I think, which is the end of that segment, we'll mill off 4 inches of the old pavement and pave back 2 inches of new, which will lower it just a little bit, but that's okay. But that'll save us significant money. And if that's still too much for our budget, option 3 is to mill and repave the whole stretch. So we have some flexibility.
Okay.
And you just,
Options.
yeah, and you'll be happy.
And we'll be happy.
whatever option we'd end up with, you know, if the Pleasant Valley Road was another golden highway to Patty
I
South.
don't have to go 25 miles per hour doing that. So
That's right. It's not like Range Road or Maple Ridge or Poker Hill or, you know, Mountain Road. It's always about Pleasant Valley.
it's just about me.
We're all envious and we're all thankful. And don't feel guilty. It's okay.
Buckets of pavement.
Yeah, right. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of authorizing Brad and Mike to advertise the pavement repair bid documents to the public contingent on finalization of a list of areas in need of repair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Brad.
Sure.
Thank you
Now
for
you-
all your insight.
Thank you very much.
Is the public comments closing song, Brownie?
Yep, that's the next item.
Hey, Brad, just for clarification, they need to sign 2 copies of
Yeah.
everyone, and everyone needs to sign these?
Yep. So just sign right down through both copies. So one will go for the paving, one will go for the structures grant. And they should just verify that it says on the codes and standards. Does it say 2019 we adopted those?
It's one of those other pages. I already handed it off. Hold on. Yes, it says 2019.
Okay.
Okay. There's no public here. I don't see anyone public in the virtual environment, but this is the point in the agenda where we do the closing public comment. So we're sailing right through that. We're at the point now where we review and approve the warrants in the minutes of the, the March 27th meeting. So with that, I'm going to move that we approve the warrants dated from March 31st, 2025. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the 331 auto pay warrants for March 2025, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I move that we accept the payroll warrant dated 4/8/2025. Is there a second? I'll second. Dan seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, are you ready for the question?
Yes.
All those in favor of approving the payroll warrants dated 4/8/2025, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Motion carries 5-0. Next is the warrant dated 4/8/2025. I move that we accept that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the 4/8/2025 warrant, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with a nay? Motion carries 5-0. Last item is the warrant dated 4/10/2025. I move that we accept that. Is there a second?
Today.
Today.
Second.
Oh.
Seconded by Patty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the warrant dated for today, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with a nay? Motion carries 5-0.
And the only other thing is the minutes for March 27th that you're supposed to review and approve. And I don't have a copy of those printed, but I can print those.
Okay.
I can, well, if I'm still logged on, no, I'm not.
I'm not logged on either.
Go ahead, I can print them off, I think. As long as
Okay,
you.
so I'm gonna move that we approve the meeting minutes for the 27th of March. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Patty. Any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for the 27th of March, please signify by saying aye.
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 Ken Steinbauer, abstain.
Dan Sullivan abstains. So Bob Stone, aye.
Maureen Collins Cole, aye.
Patty Richards, aye.
Charlotte Cole, aye.
So the motion carries 4-0 to 1. Okay. Now we are at the member items correspondence announcements schedule. The next regular The next regular scheduled meeting is set for the 24th of April. Anybody have anything?
I'm going to be out of town, but I'm going to plan to join remotely, but depends on internet availability. We're going to be planting, so.
We kind of talked about going to the cemetery. Did you want to chat about that, Bob?
No.
The 24th meeting, I'm at a conference in Colorado, and I don't know that the time will allow me to join.
Okay. I may also be out of town, but I should be able to join remotely, depending how far we travel.
I will be in person, so I can run the meeting if you would like to.
Yep, that'd be great.
So we should probably skip the cemetery.
Right. We'll discuss that offline.
Okay, but I'm just, if there's only going to be 3 people, so.
It wouldn't be good for the 24th. It
Right.
would have to be another time type of thing.
Yeah, I just soon, all due respect, settle that now so I don't have to track down 5 people. So if that's a consensus, that's good.
We'll work on a date and time
Yep.
for that. Anything else? You're good. You're good. Well, I'm sorry to say that we are at, Dan's favorite part of the week. Of course, it was the other dance, but now it's going to your favorite part of when we can adjourn.
What do we have to settle first, though?
We can do that. We don't have to do that during the public, the meeting recording. We can discuss that. We're just scheduling a time that we can all get together.
Sure.
Thanks.
Second.
It's not debatable. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are 7 minutes outside of our agenda. Brad, I want to thank you for joining us. Brad, thank you for joining us tonight. I know you're not feeling the best, but I really appreciate you being a great guy and being here tonight, helping us through with all our technical difficulties. I know they're not your fault. They're the internet provider not being very nice to us here in the town of Underhill, but you were all over it. So I really do appreciate your efforts. And I also appreciate Amanda and Jennifer scrambling. I don't think we gained any great hairs, type of thing, but I do appreciate, before we adjourn, you guys trying to help out with trying to get us online, and we were able to, do this.
Made it work. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned
Brad, feel better.
at 7:37.
Thanks. See you later.
Thank you.